So, we are both tired because we just got back from a late screening of Evil Dead Rise. So, you don't really like horror movies that much.
I hate horror movies.
I've been trying to indoctrinate our 10-year-old. So we have been watching the entirety of Evil Dead films.
Right, all of them.
No, we didn't get to 3 and you didn't see 1.
Sure, nor do I want to see 1. I'm okay with seeing 3, mostly, but because I think you said it's a comedy, so more on the likes of Beetlejuice and
sure. Like,
what is it?
Ghostbusters?
No, the parody of The Walking Dead.
I'm tired. I've seen that movie, but
Yeah.
I almost said like Walking Ted, but it's not that.
No, it's not that one either. But that one's hilarious.
Walking Ted. I didn't know that was a real
No. The parody of The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And they just did the sequel, like however many years later, which I also thought was hilarious.
Walking Dead?
No, the parody.
Of what? I don't even know what you're talking about.
The parody of The Walking Dead is a movie.
No. See, here's where you're all wrong. There's zombie movies and there's zombie parody movies. But you are just like nothing is a direct parody of The Walking Dead because that would be under copyright, so that couldn't be a thing.
Okay.
So you're just talking about a random zombie movie that you saw and being like, oh yeah, it's the one that's the parody of The Walking Dead, and it's not, but it is in your head. So like you're expecting me to know what's in your head without you being able to communicate it effectively.
Sure.
Shaun of the Dead is the name of the movie you're thinking of.
Shaun of the Dead, yes. So that is a... Yes, that is a parody, which I like. It's funny.
So anyways, before we get into it, we're going to get into spoilers here in a second, but before I get into it, what I think of the movie, not good. Worst of the series.
Not good. Just straight out, like, no preamble, no warning, awful.
I mean, I feel like going into the film, I feel like I can talk about things that I said, like, thinking going in. I mean, I can't pronounce this dude's name, I'm going to butcher it. It's like Fade Alvarez, the guy who did Part 4, the one you hated. He's gone on and he's done some really great films. Like he did Don't Breathe. He's going to do the new Alien sequel soon.
Okay.
And he's just done really great things since that film. I really liked that film, but there was an issue with him making a sequel, and I don't remember all the details on what happened. He was going to make a direct follow-up that just kind of fell out, and then the actors fell out of contract because, like, I don't know if you understand how this works, but, like, typically speaking, when you have, like, a potential movie series, you kind of go with the assumption that, like, when you hire an unknown actor or actress,
they'll follow you.
Well, no, that they're going to blow up, that you're giving them an opportunity, so therefore they will be able to command a higher salary. So what you do is you sign them in and lock them into a contract, saying, like, if you do Part 2 and 3, you're not going to renegotiate and, like, blow us up for money. So, like, we're making you famous, but at the same time, you know, like, you can't put the gun to our head afterwards, but those contracts have an expiration date.
Sure.
And they've, you know, exceeded it, so I don't think they could go back at this point. So anyways, they've all gone on and done their respective other things. So we got this film by a new director. Mm-hmm. And the whole, like, I don't know this director. Like, I feel like as I get older, like, the young, up-and-coming indie films, like, here's the thing. For all of the, like, indie, up-and-coming, great thing, you know, like, whatever, there's so many of those films suck. Like, they just suck. Like,
indie films?
Yes. Like, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, they're great. I kind of had, like, when I was, like, younger, I would watch all of them, but I feel like what happened is as video technology got cheaper, more and more people started making independent films, which is
fine. Like, more people entered the market.
But you also have a lower threshold because, like, more of it's crap. So, like, as that became a thing, I kind of, like, had, like, a 2 or 3 year rule where, like, if I wasn't excited on the premise of it, like, that I would wait 2 or 3 years and get a consensus, you know, review of a film before I went to go see it. So, like, we just talked about Barbarian. The consensus from the moment it came out was it was the best horror film of the year. I wanted to see it. Like, I didn't know the director, I didn't know whatever, but, like, I would actually now make sure that I would see that director's follow-up.
So that's the Tunnel film?
Yes.
Yeah, see, that was a great film.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
This was crap. I've heard little things about, this director Cronin did something.
Sure.
I hadn't seen it, and I wouldn't see it now. This is one of the more derivative things. Like, the only thing that really changed from the previous movies is the location. And, the fact that he's like, well, there is a snippet in part 3 where they mentioned that there were 3 books back in the medieval days. So you have book 1 in the original trilogy, book 2 in the Fade Part 4 remake.
Right.
And this is book 3.
Right.
And there's a little bit of, talk about how this book is different than the other ones because the other ones you could, kill the Deadites by hacking them up or burning them or something along those lines. And then this one...
And this one, it's almost like you almost skip over it. Like it's one sentence that's uttered in a very kind of drama-y part of the film. Right. So there's like other things going on where you're not necessarily listening to background dialogue. And so it's just one sentence kind of thrown in there that, you can't kill them. And so it's kind of very like, well, can you, can't you? Oh, that's right. Did I hear that? Did I not?
Sure. And it really doesn't matter. There's no real suspense. There's no, like, the gore, it's there, but it's not.
It's icky. Like, it's icky in the sense of, like...
I'm not going to debate you since we're not in the spoiler section yet.
Sure.
But I didn't think it comparatively was gory. Like, I thought 4 upped the ante in gore, and this felt very derivative, and it didn't play up the gore. Like, I feel like 4 was trying to, like, up the ante, and this just... maybe it was edited for, like, to get the R, and they cut a lot of stuff out, but... For what's in the theatrical version, I was bored.
But that's not to say that there's no gore.
Right.
Like, there's definitely gore in the film.
I'm speaking to Evil Dead fans.
Well, that's fine, but, like, again, it's not that there was none. It's just that there was not more than, or rather, there was nothing different. Because even for me, like, I don't like horror films. This is not my particular cup of tea, to watch this kind of film. But being that I've watched however many of the new, or the ones with you.
Right.
Like, this wasn't...
This was derivative even for you.
Yeah,
I haven't seen 2 of them.
Right, like, I haven't seen 2 of them, and I was like, I've seen... Even the one part where I was like, oh, that was gross with the... Like, the eyeball thing. And you were like, it's been done before. And I was
it was done in part 2 if you even saw it. It was done... And here's the thing. It was done better in part 2 30 years ago.
Sure. This one was very kind of... It was funny. There was people who were legitimately laughing.
No one was screaming. Like, you were the only person in the theater screaming because you're a wuss. No offense.
No.
But, like, there was no one screaming. Everyone was laughing at the theater, but, like, it was kind of the, like, groan laugh.
Yeah, there was like a lot of the groan laugh, and there was one outright just laugh. And I forget what it was that, like, triggered it, but there was, like, a pretty decent section of the theater that was like a legitimate laughable, like...
Well, I think I remember it. But, so let's get into the spoiler part. I think the reason people laughed is because, like, there's that, like, very groan-worthy part where, like, the mother is possessed. She's outside the door of the apartment.
Right.
And the little girl is about to open the door because the mom's speaking to her in a sweet voice. And everybody's like, don't open the door, you stupid bitch. Like,
yeah.
And then, like, the whole, like, audience is laughing. And it's not even, like, a tense moment because it's such a cliche, and it's not even done well.
Yeah, no, it was very, what is it? It's very tropey. It was everybody splits up, right? Because so-and-so needs to do this task, and so-and-so needs to do this other task. And so, of course...
And the people who are supposed to be watching each other are doing a job of it.
Yeah, so, of course, nobody's watching the youngest member of the family... And she's the one who gets suckered in to listening to the mom sing the lullaby, which again has been done in previous films.
All of the previous films.
So the lullaby trope has been done.
Right, and it's the little kid. And I guess that's something new that you can say is it's the family dynamic, which means this is the first Evil Dead film to have children in it, like small children.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the Evil Dead television show. I don't remember if there were children in that, to be honest. Like, I saw it once, and, like, I feel like the problem is like, so here's a weird one for me. I used to have a thing, and I've told you this, where I used to watch the original trilogy of Evil Dead films every Christmas. It was my
right. It was your thing.
It was my Christmas tradition to watch all 3 films, which was very awkward for family members because I would make a point to be in the living room while they're all like doing good things, and there's a chick getting raped by a tree.
Oh gosh!
I always used to say it was the Christmas tree.
You're so bad.
Okay, so anywho, that's the kind of person I am. But anyhow,
ridiculous.
But so like I've seen the original trilogy a ton. I've only seen the remake one. That the second time I ever saw it was you. I saw it in theaters, and I saw it with you and our daughter.
Right.
This coming whatever. And like there's 3 seasons of television show. I saw them all, but it's like one of those things where I binged it. And it didn't really stick in my head. And like, other than the first episode that had the original director in it, it felt very run together-y. Like nothing
stood out?
Nothing stood out. I didn't really like the new characters. I didn't really feel like it added anything. I felt like it had a similar cliffhanger to the 3rd film, or at least the original ending of the 3rd film, which didn't make to theaters. But like, I didn't really love... I mean, I love Bruce Campbell, the guy who did the original. Like, I love his whatever, but... I feel like the problem with doing a television show on this idea...
It's very limiting.
It's very limiting. It gets very repetitious. Like, there was a couple of new ideas, but like... It just didn't hold up, especially as a binge view.
Well, I mean, as indicative by the movies, yes, it's very repetitive. Like, if the movies are repetitive and get to a kind of like, point, I mean, the TV show has no chance.
Sure. I mean, I feel like the original film, which you haven't seen, because me and our daughter watched it together, but you weren't here because you freaked out. Because we watched them out of order. We saw part 4 first.
Right.
That freaked her out. So I was like, okay, part 2 and 3 are a comedy. And then, so I watched part 1 without you, thinking like I didn't want to scare you again. And then we watched part 2 as a family, and then we couldn't get part 3 to work.
Right.
So, like, it is what it is. We tried. We were trying to see them all before this. But back to my original point, like, everything's been done better elsewhere. There's nothing new or original. So, like, like you were talking about the trope in the opening of the film, that it's like, you get the opening horror scene, which normally you don't have in these films. Like, there's not typically the opening kill scene, like in a Freddy film or whatever, because it takes time to get to the book.
Right.
So, like, you can't really have a possession film before the book, because the book is indicative of possession.
Right.
So, like, I wasn't really prepared for that, though they did a pretty good job in the remake, because it happens before, like, by a decade or so or whatever, and it's the girl being burned. In here, it takes place the day after the main storyline. So, like, you have the opening, there's a girl possessed, she kills everybody, and, like, the effects are okay, I guess. I mean, they also do a kind of kitschy thing where, like, they have the demon effect, where it's, like, the thing flying through the woods, and then it ends up being what you call it, not a glider, but
hover, drone.
Yeah, one of the drones. So it's like, okay, like... I don't know, like, I think there's a point when you start being self-referential and self-comedic like that, where you don't take yourself seriously.
Sure.
And I feel like that's indicative of the whole film.
Yeah, well, we've talked about this before, about how, like, nobody ever makes new stuff. Like, I'm fine with new ideas, new stories, if you want to, like, do a whole new thing, that's great.
Right.
But this rehashing and remaking and redoing and a requel and a sequel and all the things, like, I mean, at some point, it's just boring.
I mean,
like, there's only so many ways that you can remix this.
I don't know if I agree. So, like, here's the thing. When I originally heard the idea of, we're going to set this in a high-rise, we're going to make it about a new book that's somehow different.
Well, right, if it had been different.
Right, but that's my whole point, is like, if there were new things and we were going to flesh out the storyline, to flesh out, like, the lore a little bit more.
Sure.
A little bit of what makes them differently, where they came from.
Right.
Like, I feel like that would have been interesting. I also feel like, so you have the next day, and you get like the day before, it's like the main story, and then you have this family possessed. And there's this weird trope of like, so they get the book, and the way they get it is kind of interesting in the sense of like these, there's an earthquake because it's California, and a little hole in the concrete of this condemned building, which they all still live in, which is going to be torn down in a week, opens up. They crawl in, and it used to be a bank, and in the vault, which looks completely dedicated by a church somehow. Like, I guess the church had the money to rent out a whole...
I mean, that part didn't make sense to me because, it's one of those pick one, right? Either you're living on top of a church basement, which could be a legitimate theory on its own, right? Or you're living in an old bank building.
Right.
And they tried to do a weird thing like split the difference.
Right.
Where you're in a bank vault, but it's full of nothing but church memorabilia, and even there's like hundreds of crosses and crucifixes hanging from the ceiling, which is not at all how a bank vault would be decorated.
Correct. So I feel like, first things first, old churches don't get converted into apartment buildings.
Right.
Banks do not get converted into apartment buildings.
Right.
So like you're fucked either way. Let's start there. 2, like if it is a bank, I'm willing, like suspension of disbelief, there had been a church that had rented a safe depository box.
Single though, not like a room decorated.
Yeah, you can't.
Because there was even a crypt.
Right.
Yeah, there was like a crypt and like a whole thing.
And that's my whole point. Is like if you're going to have it be a bank, I'm fine with somebody left it in there.
Sure.
Which is fine, but I also feel like if a bank was closing, they would like contact people and say, "Hey, we're closing. Get your stuff if you're going to get it." Or at the very least, they would have auctioned it. But the idea that they're going to leave it in a vault that no one can access seems like a liability that they could be sued for. So, like, there's that as a problem.
Well, even just doing a minor, like, things in a box that say...
I have a rant. So here's the problem. So you have the thing that shouldn't even be there as a single thing, but you have the entire vault is nothing but church memorabilia, which tells me, like, if you think about, like, how much does it cost to rent one little, like, safe depository box? It's like $50, $100, something like that a month. So you figure this church has 1,000 safe depository, like they have how much would it cost a month? And given, I think that this thing in story, closed in 1920, but like regardless, it's still, $50,000 a month. And of course, adjusted for inflation for back then, a month to keep this book. So you're paying all this money when the bank sends you the notice that they're going to close. You can't be bothered to come get it. The only thing that makes any sense to me is they were going to close it, and they're like, "Hey, should we take this?" Like, no, it'll be safe, unperturbed here because there's all the crosses and things. So it's like I can kind of believe that the church is like, well, this is the resting place, and we're going to hang all of these before it closes to try and keep the evil in. But from my understanding of actual, Catholic Church history, which they don't say Catholic Church, but
the cross that almost falls is a very Catholic-y...
Yeah, there's a lot of Catholic iconography.
Right.
I think they call them fathers, so I'm just going to assume Catholic.
That's also true.
But the Catholic Church does believe that they possess demonic things, and they actually, there's whole churches designed to praying over demonic things so that they don't escape. That's a real thing that they do. So the idea that they're like, it'll be fine. This is the most horrible possession, demon portal that exists.
Sure. We'll just leave it there.
We'll just hang some rosaries and say a prayer and
Sure.
That just doesn't seem like a thing. There's also the point of the fact that this whole thing gets unleashed because there's a record that has to be played backwards. For some fucking reason. Yes, because it started playing they just pressed play and it played backwards, and then she had to spin it because it was a DJ thing.
Sure.
So they had to do it backwards, which also doesn't make sense. Like I like the physics of like you actually have to get a music specialist, especially for old timey times, like when they would used to burn backwards recordings into music back in the day. You'd actually have to get a sound engineer to play tapes. It was a whole process.
Sure. So the idea, to be honest, and that's because I've owned record players and had, I honestly thought that the speed was off because they showed the 45 symbol, and I thought the speed was off, so they were trying to manually speed it up, and I was like, well, that's weird.
That doesn't make sense.
That doesn't make sense either. But I guess they were doing it backwards. I don't remember.
Right, but it still was playing from the outside in, which if you play records backwards,
but you would have to be from the inside out, which is why I thought they were trying to handle the speed manually.
It doesn't make sense. The whole movie's full of plot holes like this. But anyways, the whole priest message was, it can't be stopped, it can't be killed, oh my god, all the things. And then it just makes you think, well, if it can't be stopped, how was it stopped?
Sure. Well, the other thing that I thought was, why have record 1, 2, 3, and 4, which they never played 4.
They never played 3. They played 4, 1, and 2, but they never played the middle one.
They never played the middle one?
Right.
So, regardless, they never played all the records. So they played 1, 2, and 4.
Right, they played the last one, and in the last one there was there is no hope.
Right, so, but my point is, the plot hole, though, is if there's no hope, then why not destroy record 2, which is where the priest was saying the actual incantation.
Right, but my point is if there's no hope, how were they able to seal it in the crypt, in the bank, if it's just run amok? Because the one interesting point of all of this is, they have the main storyline, which we'll get into in a second, and then, the payoff for the next day is, they put this thing in a wood chipper, this demon which also, funny enough, there's other demons upstairs that didn't get put in the wood chipper.
I was thinking that that's what I was thinking. I was
so many plot holes.
Because she was well, how they were dead by dawn, dead by dawn. And so I was thinking, well, maybe the demons that are left on floor 13, right, which I thought was kind of funny, floor 13.
Yeah.
I thought maybe they disappear, turn into fire, dust, I don't know, whatever trope you want to use.
That's not how it works in this series.
But that's not how it works in the series, but regardless, they just leave.
Right.
All the rest of the demons upstairs.
Yeah, they're still demons and possessed. But anyways, so the main demon possessed thing, it kind of turns into a weird The Thing reference.
Yes.
Where all the bodies converge into this big monster, and it gets put in a wood chipper, and on a cellular level, they're recombining. And you have this girl who was going to the party in the woods, and she gets attacked, I guess, by
minutia?
Yeah, it's weird. It's almost like a T2 reference where the little cells of blood are regrouping, kind of like the T2, T1000 thing, which I'm at this point, I'm just my suspension of belief is I don't give a fuck. That's where we're at. But yeah, and then the girl steps in it and she screams, and then she's going to be the catalyst at the thing. However, the transition, the turn, is very quick in this. So, if it gets her in the thing, we're supposed to suspend our disbelief that she forgets, dismisses. Because, in this one, if you recall, you have to, the possession period, is you get possessed, you're coherent.
Right.
And I'm going to guess this is the book 3, as they're calling it, possession thing, which is not the same as the previous films, but I'm going to say it's a little bit different. You get possessed, you throw up everything,
right,
you die, and then you're possessed, and it has full control.
Right. But this one, suddenly, the last girl, right? She is infected on a cellular level, and maybe that makes a difference on why she can drive all the way to the woods.
She picks up her friend, drives out there, screws around a lot, then it takes hold, and then, what the fuck ever. If the writers don't care, why the fuck should I? That's my take.
Right.
But there's a couple of things that I thought were interesting on a, weird level here, of, this is the most prudent example of why feminism sucks I've ever seen in film. Because, like, the whole film is supposedly about the deconstruction of the family unit and how it's all female. And yet, I feel like the film is a staunch supporter of why it shouldn't be and why, like, two-parent households and, like, all the things are very, very important.
Yeah, so it's a single mom, right? Well, it's also kind of, okay. I mean, as another thing, like, it's the boy who, under the advice of his sister, she's like, put the book back, put the book back, put the book back, but he's the one who goes down the hole, he's the one who gets the book, he's the one who brings it up.
I mean, there's the whole toxic masculinity thing. So, like, to explain the family dynamic, there's two sisters.
Right.
So, one sister is the single mom, and one sister is the quote-unquote groupie slut who's having a bastard child by some dude she shacked up with on her rock tour.
Right.
Whatever. I think she's a guitar tech, and God, I mean, there's no allusion to who the father is, but that also says that it's not like somebody who she's in love with from the band. It's just
no
random dude.
Right.
She probably doesn't even know who the father is. At least that's kind of how
it reads, yeah.
Yeah. So, like, and she's like, I'm going to be this great mother. And it's like, I feel like the answer is, no, you're not. Like you doing it all by yourself and telling yourself all the things and how you're going to be this great independent woman, depriving your children of a father. Like, this is the reason why your sister's life sucks. So, like, then we get to, like, she's getting off the road because we get to see her, take her pregnancy test, and she's pregnant, and she's going to go home to be with her sister. And, like, this also doesn't make sense because the sister had recently broken up with her husband and called her, and she never picked up her phone, or, like, it's like she legitimately looked dumbfounded that, like, oh, you called me? Well, I haven't checked my message in the last 5 months, so...
Yeah, well, she makes this weird reference. She's like, I've been going low-tech, which she says something along the lines of, like, I've been going low-tech, you should feel proud of me for that, or most people would be proud of that. Or she makes, like, a weird kind of reference about being low-tech for her tour run. So the one sister is pregnant, and there's, like, an illusion that she's scared and doesn't know what she's doing because, like, the youngest daughter does a lot of, like, you're going to be a good mom, which kind of gives that, like, that she's not sure.
It's mixed messaging because the film doesn't know what it's trying to say.
Yeah.
But essentially, you have this mom who's raising 3 children who are all fucking horrible. Like, except for the little girl. The little girl is a little too young. Like they still need the little girl to be cute and girly and, like, sucker you in. Because, like, if you have a little tranny 6-year-old, you're going to, like, fucking scare everyone away. However, so you have the oldest boy. And we know he's the oldest because he's the only one who can drive, because there's a little comment with him and the daughter who, for all intents and purposes, looks bigger and older than him.
She does.
But regardless, he's the oldest one. So it's this androgynous... Like, he looks like the purple-headed lesbian.
Well, he looks more effeminate by far.
Yeah, and, like, the idea that since he's the oldest, that he's there to take care of anyone.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. This is the anti-toxic male message of, like, this is party boy. He only cares about himself and partying, and he is every form of, like, the husband ran away, and they're basically saying that men are incapable of taking care of a family because... Exhibit A, look at this piece of shit male in the family. Yeah. And it's like...
They don't even give him a mistress. No. They're like, well, why did he leave? Did he find somebody else? And she goes, no, he didn't. And so it's
the actual answer that they give is he thought that it was co-parenting to give child support and be far away. And it's like, as the guy... Like, first things first, you just know, like the mother and every design choice in the house and everything that, like her tattooed, alt-looking, like, I support every liberal cause. Like, I support the current thing. Like, that's what she's got tattooed on her forehead. Right. You'd raise an androgynous son and a short-haired lesbian dyke daughter as the oldest daughter, I would run away from that house too. Like, that man's soul was just being sucked through his fucking eyes. He's like, my family's going to be raised to shit. I've been trying for 15 years to stop it. I at least can save myself some insanity by not actually physically being here to watch it go to hell. Like that.
Sure.
Like, from the male's perspective, like he is the true hero of that movie.
Like, everything's just run amok. Mm-hmm. Like, nothing is done. The kids are rude. Like, everybody's doing their own thing.
Right.
Like, the mom's trying to parent, but not really, because she's like, go do this and that, and they're just kind of yelling at each other.
Right.
Roughhousing and just being awful.
Right, like there's that one scene where like the mother is off doing her own hobby for whatever fucking reason.
I think she's making another tattoo pen or tattoo gun.
What the fuck ever.
Yeah.
And she like tells the the middle child, hey, go take care of your siblings. And she's like, fuck off, Mom. And she's like, oh, what can I do? I'm just a single mom. I guess I just have to sit here and not give a shit about my children.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very passive. It was very like...
Well, children are going to be children. They know best.
Yeah.
Like it's that whole fucking philosophy that like children like inherently know who they're going to be, so you just need to let them lead.
Well, it was a very like... It was a very like we are cohabitating type of thing. Like... Right. Oh, like, I can be jokey with you, and you can be jokey with me, and, like, everybody, there's no, like, hierarchy.
No, parents don't know any more than children.
Right, it's very, like, oh, I told you to do something, but it's okay if you didn't, because I'm not going to yell at you or get mad at you or tell you did the wrong thing. I'm just going to, like, smile, shrug my shoulders, and, you know, go do something else.
And then, as soon as she's turned, it's, like, the real feminist message of, like, you children are parasites. I'm free now.
Oh,
I don't have to deal with you.
She did say that.
And it's like, holy shit. Like just the, like, basically, like, if I heard one message in this movie is abort your fucking kids. Like, be a feminist, abort your fucking children. Like, oh.
Yeah, it was very... And then, well, what's weird is, like, at the end, it's the sister... And the youngest daughter who just kind of walk away. And it's almost like a walk away into the sunset moment. Right. But to be honest, even that to me was very like, what? Because I'm like, okay, so the groupie sister and the youngest daughter are just...
And her unborn baby.
And her unborn baby are just sunset walking away from the apartment. And I'm like, so no job, no money, no resources, no car.
Right.
Like... You have you don't have any of this little girl's information. So like, where are you sunset walking to?
Yeah, they don't have a house. I mean, I guess like like maybe the real like happy ending in my mind is that they go back to the dad and like go in on their hands and knees and are like, please take us in. We'll be the good children and the good wife that you never had.
I don't know. Like it was like that. Like that kind of ending, at least in the other whatever it's called, The Rise of the Dead. What is this movie called?
Evil Dead Rise.
Evil Dead Rise. So, at least in other films, the like sunset moment is like a single person. It's like a single or a couple with no children, and they're like walking out of the woods, and you still have that kind of like, how are you going to explain the fact that however many people have been murdered, but you kind of suspend your disbelief in the sense that it's like, well, what happens in the woods stays in the woods.
Right.
Like, hopefully I don't get, hung for murder. But, like, in this one, if you're in a suburban area...
Oh, yeah. Like, the cops are going to show... Like, one of the things is happening. One, like, what I thought would end up being the ending, which is everyone's infected, which is kind of the ending, but it's more ambiguous in this.
It's very ambiguous.
Which should be... Like, there's a shit fuck ton of people in LA. We now have a mutated, like, weird fucking, like, possession virus out there.
Right.
Which is just unleashed in a suburban area. But we just aren't going to, we can't be bothered to talk about that. Okay, whatever. Like, this is the most...
I mean, I guess if I really, really think about it, you're supposed to put it together that the building is going to be blown up. Or demolished. It doesn't say blown up, but it says, like, the building is going to be demolished next week. So I guess you're supposed to assume that...
It's somewhat contained?
Yeah, like, if the building is demolished...
Because there's multiple zombie creatures up in the thing that can get out, and they can't be killed, so, like, they could just jump out a window...
This is true.
And get up and, like, none of that makes
any sense. Yeah, plot holes.
The plot holes in this fucking movie are just stupid. But like from a kill basis, like even from a gore basis, like first things first, like the chainsaw is back.
Yes, the trope chainsaw is back.
Which has been in all of them, and I was almost okay with it in the remake because there was other things. There was the nail gun, there was a few other things that were new in that film. But like going back to it, I also felt like the turkey cutter thing in the remake was really good. Like
the electric knife. Yeah.
New stuff in it to make it interesting. So when they get to the chainsaw, it's not like we're going back to the chainsaw. There was the chainsaw. There's the same
there's the wood chipper.
Well, yeah, but there's the break action shotgun. Like these are just the tropes of like the original Evil Dead, and it's like here's the thing. I've been looking for a double barrel that's like a side by side shotgun like that for a long time. They don't even make them anymore.
No.
So the idea that like they were popular in the 70s when Evil Dead 1 was made.
Right.
But the idea that they're just like that's what people
They're lying around.
Right. Yeah. In LA of all fucking
in LA.
Yeah, gun control central.
Yeah. By some old dude who lives alone in the 13th floor of a building.
Downtown fucking LA. Bullshit.
He's really like, and what I thought was funny is he actually smokes in the movie.
Right.
Like that, I was like, a person who smokes in a movie. Like you don't see that too often.
Right.
Especially now.
It's just overall, and they also made a point of we don't believe in religion anymore.
It was a little, it was very, plot hole central.
Right.
And then it was just very redone. It was just a lot of redone to death.
The only new things, because they have a stab through the hand, which is nothing.
Right.
They have a tattoo gun that's dipped in blood as ink, which really wasn't that much of a show. They had the eye popping scene redone, but worse. They did a couple stabbings that weren't really that big of a deal.
No.
The only thing that I would give any credence to is, like you said, there's a cheese grater scene.
Yeah.
However, it's more of the idea of the cheese grater than it being used to any real use. Like the actual visual that accompanies it
is not that.
It's not really there. And here's the other thing about it: when people are getting injured and cut up and beat up, they never stay injured. There's no consensus through the his legs hurt, his leg stays hurt, or he gets a cut on his eye and it stays there. It's just kind of we showed you the gag and now we're gonna go on like nothing fucking happened.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be honest, that really kind of messed with me with the mom because they even redid the whole tree strangle scene,
right? But they did it in
they did it in the elevator,
sure,
which is fine, whatever. But what I was going to say is, she was broken, Muppet doll puppet thing, broken, and she was, shambling.
Sure.
But only up until, she gets to the kitchen, and then...
Right.
And then suddenly, all her bones are mended again, and she's no longer
one thing
shambling.
I will say is a positive is the actress that played the mom. I remember thinking... when I saw her in the beginning of the movie, wow, that girl's in really good shape. She just had a really good build on her. And what I could tell as the movie went on, as she was playing the demonic person, doing all the weird demonic movements and walk, she was a ballerina. She did that. That was in camera, that wasn't digital. And I was that was actually well done, that you got someone who could physically do the role.
Right.
Rather than get a normal
CGI
person and CGI it in. I thought that was very well done. Though, like I said, I looked at her build at the beginning and it was that girl is for a single mom of three, she is jacked.
Yeah.
And it's because they actually had to hire someone to do this stunt stuff later, but
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was, because I remember thinking the same thing, to be honest, I thought they were going to make, a joke about her being, a gym, you've been hitting the gym because your husband left you type of joke.
Right.
I honestly thought that's where that was going. The sister was going to be you've been really taking care of yourself. Mm-hmm. And then her being my husband left or whatever.
Sure. No, but yeah, it's just all of the pacing, all the timing, the blood wasn't there. The one thing that I thought was kind of a weird... But again, it's a homage. It's alluding to something else. Is the elevator full of blood from The Shining that falls and crashes out and fills up. But I also here's the other thing that just pisses me off about this film is they created. Okay, on a good note, you have the hallway, the apartment, which is way too big for a single mom to afford in LA. I'll start there. But that's its own.
Well, she's only been alone for 2 weeks, or no, 2 months.
And,
sorry.
And she's also still getting checks from the husband. Fair enough. But you have the apartment, the hallway, the parking garage, and that's it. Oh, and I guess like if you really want to get technical, the part where the bank vault is.
Oh, the like underground.
Right, but my point is that they do a really good with economy of location for the film to make it kind of feel claustrophobic, not to the same degree I thought the cabin did in the first films, but like I enjoyed that they kept the similar feel of claustrophobia. However, I actually felt like it would have been interesting to see it more opened up, like to see it be a full building and there be more and more people getting involved and it be more of a mayhem. But like my point is when this first thing happens, it happens in the elevator. The elevator is basically considered to be demonic, I guess, or whatever. So there's this whole point of contention of like the only way to get down because of the earthquake. The earthquake like killed the stairs, so there's no stairwell.
Right.
Is that there is a fire escape? And the only way to get through the fire escape is to get through this door, and they have a shotgun, and they have all you have to get through the room. Which I thought was an interesting MacGuffin, that they have to get through this thing, and there's like things could be in there and what have you, and then they're just like, fuck, the elevator's fine. Like they couldn't, like if the elevator was fine, they could have gotten out before. And when they get in the elevator really is fine. So like the point of making it the demonic elevator, like.
Well, I think it was supposed to be more that the elevator was dangerous because of the earthquake, and then you really had to choose what's more dangerous: an earthquake damaged elevator or a demon-possessed mom.
Well, the original mom is attacked by the elevator.
This is true.
So, like, in the original films, you can't escape the cabin because the woods will attack you. So I thought they were doing a similar thing that
the building had been demonic.
Right. So, like, I was expecting they're going to eventually get to the fire escape, and the fire escape is going to be wonky, and the rails are going to be coming to get them, and all sorts of bullshit. And like, there's a scene where the mom goes up into the
AC ducts.
The AC ducts, and I thought like, before you know it, they're going to be in the AC ducts. You're going to have claustrophobic things. There's going to be none of that shit.
They had a lot of opportunity that was missed.
Right.
You are correct. Because to be honest, I didn't think of that. Like I was very in the room. Like everything is going to happen in the room, and I, to be honest, thought that they were never going to get out of the apartment.
Sure. My point is, like, the whole point is that you have demonic elevator. You can't get in demonic elevator. And then, like, halfway through, his plot demands, fuck it, it'll be fine. And it's fine. Like...
Well, I mean, not really, because they get into the elevator, and then the elevator tries to kill them by drowning them.
Right, but like...
Which I thought was weird. Like, here's my thing with, like, mysticism in movies, is either it's mysticism or it's real physics.
Right.
But, like, the idea that mysticism can, like, affect physics for real is kind of weird to me. So
there's like that cross binding.
Right, like that to me is weird. So you have this elevator that's filling up with blood, and it makes a point to zoom in on the capacity limit for the elevator.
Which then breaks the cable and falls.
Right, which is why...
you have the shining scene, yeah.
Which is why I'm like, okay, you pick one. Like, stay in your lane. Either we're going to go full mysticism,
right,
which is fine,
right,
or we're going to go full physics.
It's a stupid thing where, like you could see the water level rise through the buttons as if it was like a weird tank thing.
Yes.
Which didn't make any fucking sense at all to me, because that's not how that would work.
Well, the blood was going up the walls faster than it was going up the floor, so I think it was like, like a prelude.
Right.
But again, either full mysticism or full physics. Like, you can't...
Right.
You can't really... There's a very low threshold where you can mix the two.
Right.
And they definitely exceeded it.
Yeah, and... I mean, just everything about this was dumb. Like, I mean, everything about this was the worst that it could be. Like, thinking about it, like, I loved the remake. I thought the remake was very well done.
That would be 4.
4, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Because, like, I was just thinking about it, like, when they get out of the elevator of blood, they're all covered in blood, and it basically looks like when it's raining blood at 4, because it has that, like, aesthetic where they're covered head. And again, it's like, what can we copy from this film? What can we copy from this film? But like,
I thought that they were going to turn. I really did, because they make a point in this movie to, like, anytime that somebody is covered in blood or affected by blood, they turn.
Like, because the blood from
the thing and the
girl, and then, like, she stabbed him and they stabbed him, so the boy.
So I thought the two of them. I thought that there was really not going to be like a survivor. I thought that the last girl from the very beginning of the movie.
How great of an ending would it be if you have the little girl and the whatever, they're standing against the main villain, and then the older sister turns on the little girl and eats her.
Sure.
Like, to me, like, that's a much more potent ending. Because I feel like the little girl turning is kind of, like, done to death, but, like, no survivors.
Right. Like, I thought this was going to be a no survivor movie.
Right.
And that the blonde girl from the beginning loop was going to be the final.
Because here's the other thing: I don't want to see a sequel with any of the characters anyway.
No.
So, like, I feel like the best this film could have done,
just kill them all.
Well, not only kill them all, but like the beginning prequel scene is part of a larger picture. So, like, we have the girl one from the cabin get infected,
right?
But then you like cut to 2 or 3 other scenes of other people being infected and kind of like zoom out of like LA in total, and then you can just like throw in like sounds of people screaming and demonic sounds.
I mean, then you go full on zombie.
Right.
Yeah, Zombieland.
Yeah.
That's the movie I was thinking of.
That's not Walking Dead. That actually precedes.
Oh, does it?
Yes.
Oh, well, look at that. Well, Zombieland is the other comedy horror.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah, the one that didn't do the thing that you were like, oh, the one that is a. Yeah.
I don't like horror. I don't know what to tell you.
Anywho. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't precede the comics, but the comics weren't big enough for it to have its own
following?
Well, I mean, they had their own following. It wouldn't have had its own, like, comedy variation.
Ah, I see.
Like, I very much think of Zombieland as its own thing.
It kind of really is.
Yeah.
But regardless, I really would have liked this one to be a Hamlet and just kill them all.
Oh, yeah, I think it would have been a much stronger film had the mom turned and gone like, oh, fuck it, we're going to, like, completely kill the family unit. And have, like, the protector, oh, you're going to be a great mom.
Yeah.
That's the best ending. And then, like I said, and then you have the zombie, and I think that would have been an interesting place to take this series, because it's not, like, it's a zombie film series, but it's not one that's ever been treated with zombies, because it's always been
demonic
a cabin.
Right.
That's very isolated. And if you're going to make the books separate, like in the first one, it makes a point of saying, well, this one possesses the woods.
Right.
Which doesn't really, like, leak to getting out of the woods. It's more of like the idea of like, oh, the haunted woods that you don't go into. The haunted woods don't come into the village.
Right. It's very much indicative of the Red Riding Hood type of thing. Like, don't go into the woods. Right. The woods are weird. Stay away from the woods. If you do go into the woods and you don't come back, nobody's looking for you. We're just gonna assume you died.
Right.
Like, yeah. But this one, if they really wanted to continue the series and go, zombies have been done to death also, but at least they could have done demon zombies.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, this one was not only the worst of the entire series, but it's so bad, when they inevitably make a sequel, I'm going to actually wait for reviews of other people.
Before you watch it?
Before I watch it. Like, I'm actually going to wait for a consensus. I won't see it in theaters unless people are really blown away and saying they really got their shit together, because, how many out of 5?
Oh, I don't like the series to begin with, but my thing is... Mm-hmm. You know you did a horror movie bad when people are outright laughing.